Before we talk about success, let me ask you something uncomfortable. If your life looks exactly the same at the end of 2026 as it does today, same habits, same fears, same excuses, would you be proud of yourself? Because time is going to move forward whether you do or not. The next 2 years won't ask for your permission. They won't wait until you feel ready. They won't slow down because you're confused, tired, or unsure. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. 2026 will expose whatever you failed to build, not your goals, not your wishes, what you built. That's why this conversation matters. Because the people who win in 2026 won't be the most talented or the most confident. They'll be the ones who built the right things early, quietly, consistently, intentionally. Stay with me until the end of this speech, because the final point may be the most important thing you've ever built, and most people realize it too late. Most people don't fail because they lack effort. They wake up early. They stay busy. They try harder than ever. And yet, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, at the end of a decade, they look around and wonder why nothing truly changed. The real reason is rarely laziness, it's direction. Effort without direction is just movement, and movement without alignment leads to exhaustion, not progress. You can be incredibly busy and still be completely lost. You can be moving fast and still be heading the wrong way. This is what it looks like when clarity is missing. Life feels noisy. Every opportunity sounds tempting. Every path looks urgent. You say yes too often because you don't know what deserves a no. You fill your schedule, your mind, and your energy with activity, yet something feels off. There's a quiet frustration that builds over time. You're doing a lot, but it doesn't feel meaningful. You're moving, but you don't feel grounded. That's not a motivation problem. That's a clarity problem. Clarity begins with understanding who you are, not who you pretend to be, not who others expect you to be, not the version of you shaped by fear, comparison, or approval. Who you are at your core, your values, your strengths, your non-negotiables. The things you stand for even when it costs you something. When you don't know who you are, you borrow identities from the world around you. You chase goals that look impressive but feel empty. You say yes to paths that slowly drain you. And over time, you begin living a life that doesn't feel like your own. Knowing who you are creates boundaries. It helps you recognize what fits and what doesn't. It allows you to walk away from good opportunities that don't align with your values. And that's hard because walking away often looks like failure from the outside. But in reality, it's focus. It's choosing alignment over approval. When your actions match your values, life feels lighter, even when it's difficult. You stop needing constant validation because you're no longer unsure of yourself. The second part of clarity is knowing what you want. This sounds simple, but most people have never actually answered this honestly. They know what they don't want. They know what they're tired of, but they haven't taken the time to define what they're moving toward. Without that definition, every goal feels temporary. Every decision feels uncertain. You start things and abandon them halfway because you were never deeply connected to them in the first place. When you know what you want, focus becomes natural. You don't need constant motivation because you're pulled forward by intention. You stop chasing everything and start committing to something. And commitment changes how you show up. It changes how you use your time. It changes how you measure progress. Instead of comparing yourself to everyone else, you start comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. But clarity doesn't stop at who you are and what you want. The most powerful part is knowing why it matters. Because without a reason, discipline feels like punishment. Without a reason, sacrifice feels pointless. Without a reason, pressure feels overwhelming. When you don't know why you're doing something, every obstacle becomes a reason to quit. Purpose changes that. Purpose turns pressure into fuel. It transforms effort into meaning. When you know why something matters to you, you can endure discomfort without losing yourself. You can stay consistent when results are slow. You can remain grounded when things get difficult. Purpose gives context to struggle. It reminds you that the work you're doing today is connected to something bigger than temporary discomfort. This is why clarity makes discipline feel meaningful. When you're clear, discipline is no longer about forcing yourself to do things you hate. It becomes a form of self-respect. You wake up and do the work not because you have to, but because it aligns with who you are becoming. Even hard days feel purposeful because they are part of a larger direction. Without clarity, every opportunity feels confusing. You second-guess yourself constantly. You wonder if you're making the right choice. You change direction too often because you're afraid of committing to the wrong path, and that fear keeps you stuck. But with clarity, decisions become easier. Not because they're always easy emotionally, but because they're clear logically and spiritually. You know what to say yes to, you know what to say no to, and that simplicity creates momentum. Clarity also brings peace. When you're aligned, you stop fighting yourself. You stop forcing outcomes that don't fit. You stop trying to prove your worth through achievement. Instead, your actions begin to feel intentional. You move with purpose, not pressure. And that doesn't mean life becomes easy. It means life becomes coherent. The struggle makes sense. The effort has direction. The sacrifice has meaning. Before 2026 ends, clarity is the foundation you must build. Not a perfect plan, not a flawless roadmap, but a deep understanding of who you are, what you want, and why it matters. Everything else depends on it. Your habits, your discipline, your resilience, your confidence. When clarity is present, you don't need to chase motivation. You don't need to copy others. You don't need to rush. You simply move forward one aligned decision at a time, knowing that even if the path is challenging, it is yours. Confidence doesn't come from success. That idea has misled generations of people into chasing achievements, titles and approval, believing that once they reach a certain level, confidence will finally arrive. But confidence is not a reward waiting at the finish line. It's the byproduct of something far more fundamental: self-trust. And success, real success, grows out of that trust. When you trust yourself, you take action. When you take action, results follow. Without self-trust, even success feels fragile, temporary, and undeserved. Self-trust is not built in dramatic moments. It's not built on stages, trophies, or applause. It's built quietly, in private, through the smallest decisions you make every day. It's built when your actions match your words. When you say you'll start tomorrow, and you actually do. When you say you'll stop, and you follow through. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are the foundation of everything else. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable. Every time you break one, you weaken that belief. Many people don't realize how often they disappoint themselves. They cancel commitments they made in moments of clarity. They negotiate with themselves when discomfort shows up. Over time, this creates an internal doubt that no amount of external praise can fix. You may look confident on the outside, but inside there's hesitation, a quiet voice asking, will I really show up this time? That voice is not fear. It's a lack of trust built through repeated inconsistency. When self-trust is weak, fear feels stronger. You hesitate to take risks because you're not sure you'll follow through. You overthink decisions because you don't trust your own judgment. You look for reassurance from others because you haven't earned it from yourself. Fear thrives in that uncertainty. It grows louder when you doubt your ability to handle what comes next. But when you trust yourself, fear loses its grip. It doesn't disappear, but it stops controlling you. You're willing to step forward not because you're fearless, but because you believe you'll handle whatever happens. You trust your resilience. You trust your capacity to learn. You trust that even if things don't go as planned, you won't abandon yourself. Self-trust changes how you approach challenges. Instead of asking, what if I fail? You begin asking, can I rely on myself to keep going? And when the answer is yes, everything shifts. Failure becomes feedback, not a verdict. Obstacles become part of the process, not a sign to quit. You stop avoiding discomfort because you know you can endure it. This is why the strongest version of you by the end of 2026 won't be the loudest one. It won't be the one constantly proving something to the world. It will be the one who is calm under pressure, steady in uncertainty, and grounded in their own word. That strength doesn't need validation. It doesn't need attention. It comes from a deep internal certainty that says, I can rely on myself. That certainty transforms discipline. Discipline stops feeling like force and starts feeling like integrity. You don't push yourself because you're afraid of falling behind. You show up because that's who you are. You keep going because you've done it before. And each time you follow through, you strengthen that identity. Self-trust also reshapes how you set goals. Instead of aiming for unrealistic perfection, you aim for consistency. You choose promises you can keep. You build momentum slowly, knowing that reliability beats intensity. And as that momentum grows, so does your confidence, not the loud kind, the quiet kind that doesn't need to announce itself. Over time, self-trust becomes your anchor. When things go well, it keeps you grounded. When things fall apart, it keeps you moving. You stop panicking when plans change because you trust your ability to adapt. You stop fearing judgment because you're no longer outsourcing your worth. Your approval comes from alignment between who you say you are and how you live. By the time 2026 comes to an end, the most powerful transformation you can experience is not becoming someone new, but becoming someone dependable to yourself. Someone whose words mean something, someone whose commitments carry weight. That version of you doesn't need to feel confident all the time. They simply know deep down that when it matters, they will show up. And once you know that about yourself, fear loses its power, doubt loses its voice, and the future no longer feels intimidating. It feels possible. Motivation is emotional. It rises and falls with your mood, your energy, your circumstances, and your environment. Some days it's strong, loud, and inspiring. Other days it disappears without warning. And when your progress depends on something so unpredictable, your growth becomes unstable. Discipline, on the other hand, is structural. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't ask for permission. It operates quietly in the background, holding your life together when motivation fails. If your growth depends on how you feel, you've already lost. Feelings change too quickly. They are influenced by stress, fatigue, disappointment, and distraction. Waiting to feel ready, inspired, or excited before taking action is one of the most common traps people fall into. It feels reasonable, even responsible, but it slowly trains you to associate progress with comfort, and comfort is never consistent. This is why discipline must be built as a system, not an emotion. Systems remove decision fatigue. They eliminate the need for constant motivation. When something is part of your routine, you don't negotiate with yourself every day. You don't debate whether or not to show up. You simply follow the structure you've already designed. That structure becomes your support when your energy is low and your mind is heavy. A disciplined system is made of habits, routines, and boundaries. Habits decide what you do automatically. Routines decide when and how you do it. Boundaries decide what you protect and what you refuse to allow. Together, they create a framework that keeps you moving forward regardless of external circumstances. Without this framework, progress becomes accidental. With it, progress becomes inevitable. The mistake many people make is trying to build discipline on excitement. They start strong, they overhaul their life overnight, they set unrealistic expectations and rely on intensity to carry them forward. But intensity is temporary, it burns bright and fades quickly. When life gets difficult, intensity collapses. Consistency, however, survives pressure. Consistency doesn't need perfect conditions, it only needs commitment. Building systems that work on hard days is the real test of discipline. Anyone can show up when they feel inspired. The system must be designed for the days when you're tired, distracted, discouraged, or overwhelmed. Those are the days that define who you become. A good system lowers the barrier to action. It makes starting easy and quitting inconvenient. It supports progress even when motivation is absent. Habits that don't need excitement are the most powerful ones. They are small, repeatable, and sustainable. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on identity. When something becomes part of who you are, you stop questioning it. You don't need hype to brush your teeth. You don't need motivation to show up for responsibilities you've accepted as non-negotiable. The same principle applies to growth. When discipline becomes part of your identity, action becomes automatic. Boundaries play a critical role in this system. Without boundaries, discipline is constantly under attack. Distractions creep in, priorities get diluted, energy gets wasted. Boundaries protect your focus. They allow you to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. They create space for what matters and eliminate what doesn't. Discipline is not just about doing more, it's about doing less of the wrong things. A well-built system also creates momentum. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you build evidence that you are reliable. That evidence fuels self-trust. Self-trust fuels confidence. And confidence makes discipline easier to maintain. This is how growth compounds. Not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through steady repetition over time. By the time 2026 arrives, the people who thrive will not be the ones who worked the hardest in short bursts. They will be the ones who showed up when it was boring, uncomfortable, and inconvenient. Consistency will outperform intensity every time because consistency builds endurance. It builds resilience. It builds results that last. Discipline systems also reduce emotional friction. When you know what to do and when to do it, you free your mind from constant decision-making. This mental clarity allows you to focus on execution rather than hesitation. You stop asking, should I? And start saying, this is what I do. That shift is subtle but powerful. Over time, discipline becomes less about control and more about alignment. You're not forcing yourself to act against your nature. You're shaping your environment and routines to support the person you want to become. The system works for you, not against you. And when it's designed correctly, it carries you forward even when your motivation disappears. By building discipline as a structure rather than an emotion, you stop depending on fleeting feelings and start depending on reliable systems. You create a foundation that supports growth through every season. And in a world that constantly pulls you in different directions, that structure becomes your greatest advantage. Short-term thinking creates short-term lives. It keeps people trapped in cycles of immediate relief, temporary pleasure, and quick validation. It encourages decisions based on comfort instead of consequence, ease instead of impact. When life is driven by what feels good now, the future becomes an afterthought. And when the future is ignored long enough, it arrives with consequences no one prepared for. Most people are not intentionally careless about their future. They're simply conditioned to prioritize the present. The world rewards speed, visibility, and instant results. Likes come instantly. Opinions form instantly. Gratification is always one click away. In that environment, it becomes natural to ask what feels good now rather than what will matter in 5 years. The problem is that comfort is loud, but consequence is quiet. Comfort speaks in the moment. Consequence whispers in the distance. Long-term thinking requires a different kind of discipline. It demands patience in a culture that celebrates urgency. It requires faith in outcomes that cannot yet be seen. Long-term thinkers are willing to make decisions today that won't be rewarded immediately. They understand that progress is not always visible and growth is not always applauded. Sometimes the most important work happens when no one is watching and no one is clapping. Choosing long-term thinking often means being misunderstood. When you delay gratification, people question your choices. When you choose consistency over excitement, others may see you as slow or unambitious. When you prioritize learning over recognition, some will wonder why you're not chasing attention. But long-term thinkers understand something most people overlook. Approval is temporary, but results are permanent. They choose growth over comfort because they understand that comfort rarely leads anywhere meaningful. Comfort keeps you in familiar patterns. Growth requires discomfort, uncertainty, and patience. Long-term thinkers accept this trade-off. They are willing to be uncomfortable now so they don't have to be regretful later. They understand that every small, disciplined choice compounds over time, even when the progress feels invisible. Delayed gratification is not about deprivation, it's about direction. It's about choosing what matters most over what feels easiest. Long-term thinkers don't deny themselves joy. They prioritize deeper fulfillment over shallow pleasure. They understand that sacrificing a little today can create freedom tomorrow. And they make peace with the fact that the rewards they're building toward may arrive quietly without public recognition. Thinking long-term also changes how failure is perceived. Short-term thinkers see failure as a verdict. Long-term thinkers see it as data. They understand that setbacks are part of the process, not signs to stop. When the timeline is longer, a single mistake loses its power. A bad week doesn't define a year. A wrong decision doesn't define a life. Perspective softens disappointment and strengthens resilience. Long-term thinking reshapes identity. Instead of asking, how do I look right now? The question becomes, who am I becoming? That shift changes behavior. It influences daily habits, relationships, and priorities. It encourages patience with progress and persistence through challenges. When the focus is on who you are becoming, comparison loses its grip. You stop measuring yourself against others' timelines and start honoring your own. Before 2026 ends, building a mindset that values progress over applause is essential. Applause is addictive, but it's fleeting. It fades quickly and leaves you craving more. Progress, on the other hand, is quiet but lasting. It compounds. It builds confidence that doesn't rely on external validation. When you value progress, you no longer need constant recognition to stay committed. The work itself becomes enough. This mindset also protects you from burnout. Short-term thinking pushes people to sprint endlessly, chasing quick wins and fast results. Long-term thinking allows for pacing. It encourages sustainable effort. It recognizes that meaningful lives are built through endurance, not exhaustion. When you're thinking long-term, rest becomes strategic, not indulgent. Recovery becomes part of the plan, not a sign of weakness. Long-term thinkers design their lives intentionally. They consider the future impact of their daily choices. They ask hard questions about where their habits are leading them. They are willing to trade short-term approval for long-term pride. And while this path may feel lonely at times, it leads to a deep sense of fulfillment that shortcuts can never provide. By choosing to think beyond the moment, you take control of your trajectory. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. You stop chasing what feels good and start building what lasts. And in doing so, you create a life that doesn't just look good today, but feels meaningful for years to come. The future belongs to people who can respond, not react. Reaction is automatic. It's fast, emotional, and often driven by impulse. Response is intentional. It requires awareness, patience, and control. In moments of pressure, the difference between the two determines outcomes. Reaction gives away power, response preserves it, and as the world becomes louder, faster, and more chaotic, emotional control is no longer a soft skill. It is a survival skill. Your emotions will try to hijack your decisions, not because emotions are bad, but because they are powerful. Anger will push you to speak before you think. Fear will stop you before you even try. Ego will convince you that being right matters more than being effective. Left unchecked, these emotions shape choices that feel justified in the moment and regrettable later. Emotional control is not about suppressing feelings. It's about understanding them without letting them take the wheel. Anger, when unmanaged, narrows perspective. It creates urgency where none exists. It convinces you that immediate action is necessary, even when patience would serve you better. Under anger, words become weapons and decisions become defensive. Emotional control allows you to pause long enough to ask whether the reaction you're about to have aligns with the outcome you actually want. That pause is power. Fear operates differently. It doesn't rush you forward, it holds you back. It whispers worst-case scenarios and magnifies uncertainty. Fear convinces you that discomfort is danger and that failure is permanent. Without emotional control, fear becomes a prison. You hesitate, delay, and avoid. With emotional control, fear becomes information rather than instruction. You acknowledge it without obeying it. You move forward cautiously but deliberately. Ego is the most subtle and dangerous of all. It disguises itself as confidence and self-respect. Ego resists feedback. It takes things personally. It seeks validation and dominance rather than growth and understanding. Ego reacts because it feels threatened. Emotional control allows you to separate your identity from the moment. You can listen without defending, learn without feeling diminished, and adapt without feeling defeated. The ability to stay calm under pressure is not a personality trait. It's a practice skill. Calmness does not mean lack of intensity or ambition. It means clarity in chaos. It means being able to think when others panic. It means choosing the long-term outcome over short-term relief. Calm people are not passive, they are strategic. They understand that urgency often clouds judgment. Under stress, focus becomes your greatest advantage. Stress scatters attention. It pulls you in multiple directions and demands immediate responses. Emotional control allows you to narrow your focus to what actually matters. You stop reacting to every stimulus and start prioritizing deliberately. This focus protects your energy and preserves your effectiveness. You become harder to manipulate and easier to trust. Criticism is another test of emotional control. Without control, criticism feels like an attack. It triggers defensiveness, denial, or withdrawal. With control, criticism becomes a filter. You can extract what's useful and discard what's not. You don't need to agree with every opinion, but you don't need to fight every battle either. Steadiness under criticism reflects inner security. It shows that your sense of self is not dependent on approval. Emotional control also changes how you communicate. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond thoughtfully. You listen more than you speak. You choose words carefully. This doesn't make you weak, it makes you influential. People trust those who are composed. They follow those who are consistent. In moments of tension, calm leadership creates stability. In 2026, the calm mind will always defeat the loud one. Loudness draws attention, but calmness commands respect. Loud reactions may dominate the moment, but calm responses shape outcomes. As pressure increases and stakes rise, emotional control becomes a competitive advantage. It allows you to navigate complexity without losing yourself. This control is built through awareness and practice. It starts with recognizing emotional triggers. It grows by creating space between stimulus and response. Over time, That space becomes a habit. You no longer react automatically. You choose how to engage. You choose your tone, your timing, and your actions. Emotional control doesn't mean you stop feeling deeply. It means you feel without being controlled by what you feel. You become the observer, not the prisoner of your emotions. And in that position, you gain clarity, strength, and direction. As the world accelerates, those who can remain steady will stand out. They will make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and sustain momentum under pressure. The future will not reward the most reactive voices. It will reward those who can stay calm, focused, and intentional when it matters most. Success is rarely a solo journey. No matter how independent, driven, or self-reliant you believe you are, the truth is that every meaningful achievement is shaped by the people around you. The conversations you have, the support you receive, the standards you're exposed to, and the energy you absorb all influence the direction of your life. We don't rise or fall in isolation. We rise or fall in relationship. The people around you either stretch you or shrink you. Some challenge your thinking, push you to grow, and remind you of what you're capable of becoming. Others keep you anchored to old versions of yourself. They reinforce doubts, normalize excuses, and subtly discourage ambition. Often this isn't done with bad intentions. It happens quietly through habits, expectations, and shared comfort. Over time, those influences shape what you believe is possible. Relationships act as mirrors. The right ones reflect your potential back to you, even when you can't see it yourself. They tell you the truth when it's uncomfortable. They celebrate your growth without feeling threatened by it. The wrong ones reflect your limitations. They remind you of who you used to be and resist who you're trying to become. This is why choosing relationships intentionally is not selfish. It's necessary. Before 2026 ends, the relationships you build must be rooted in trust, growth, and honesty. Trust creates safety. It allows vulnerability without fear of exploitation. It allows you to share doubts, failures, and fears without pretending everything is fine. Growth keeps the relationship dynamic. It ensures that both people are evolving, learning, and moving forward. Honesty keeps it real. It prevents resentment from building and misalignment from festering. Relationships built on convenience are fragile. They exist because of proximity, habit, or circumstance. When situations change, these connections fade. Relationships built on validation are unstable. They rely on constant reassurance and approval. They feel good in the moment, but collapse under pressure. Relationships built on comfort can be the most dangerous of all. They feel safe, but they often resist growth. Comfort can quietly keep you small. Meaningful relationships are different. They don't always feel easy, but they feel solid. They allow space for disagreement without disconnection. They support growth even when it creates distance. They respect individuality while strengthening connection. These relationships require effort, communication, and courage. They ask you to show up honestly, not perfectly. Strong relationships create resilience. When life becomes uncertain, when plans fall apart, when confidence wavers, relationships provide stability. They remind you that you don't have to carry everything alone. They offer perspective when emotions cloud judgment. They give you strength when your own feels depleted. Resilience is not just an internal trait, it is reinforced through connection. Resilient people are not those who never struggle. They are those who have support systems that help them recover. They know who to call when things go wrong. They have people who listen without judgment and speak without cruelty. This kind of support doesn't appear overnight. It is built through consistency, presence, and mutual respect over time. Building meaningful relationships also requires letting go of some connections. This is one of the hardest parts. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some served a purpose in a specific season. Holding on to relationships that no longer align can prevent new, more supportive ones from forming. Letting go doesn't always mean conflict or rejection. Sometimes it simply means creating distance to protect your growth. Healthy relationships require contribution, not just consumption. You must be willing to offer the same trust, honesty, and support you expect to receive. You must listen as much as you speak. You must show up not only when it's convenient, but when it's necessary. Relationships deepen through shared effort, not shared comfort. As you move toward 2026, pay attention to how you feel after spending time with people. Do you feel energized or drained? Encouraged or discouraged? Clear or confused? These signals matter. They reveal the impact of your environment. Growth is easier when you're surrounded by people who believe in your future more than your past. Meaningful relationships also hold you accountable. They don't allow you to stay stuck in self-deception. They challenge excuses without attacking your character. Accountability is a form of care. It says, I see who you can become and I won't let you settle for less. This kind of honesty can be uncomfortable, but it's transformative. As uncertainty increases and the future becomes less predictable, relationships will matter more than ever. Skills can be learned, strategies can change, but strong relationships provide continuity. They anchor you when everything else feels unstable. They remind you that progress is not just about what you achieve, but who you become alongside others. Building meaningful relationships is not about having more people in your life. It's about having the right people. Those who stretch you, support you, and stand with you when outcomes are uncertain. These relationships don't just enhance success, they sustain it. The world is changing faster than ever, and the pace is not slowing down. Systems evolve, industries shift, and skills that once guaranteed stability can become obsolete in a matter of years. What worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, and what feels secure today can quickly become irrelevant. In this environment, the ability to learn, adapt, and evolve is no longer optional. It is survival. For a long time, value was measured by what you knew. Knowledge was power. Expertise was security. But now information is everywhere. Answers are instant. Tutorials are endless. The advantage no longer belongs to those who simply possess knowledge. It belongs to those who can acquire, apply, and update it quickly. The skill of learning fast has become the most important skill of all. Learning fast begins with humility. It requires the willingness to admit that what you know may be incomplete or outdated. Many people struggle here because identity becomes attached to expertise. Letting go of being the smartest person in the room can feel threatening. But growth demands curiosity over ego. The moment you stop learning because you want to appear competent is the moment you start falling behind. Curiosity keeps you adaptable. It pushes you to ask questions instead of defending assumptions. Curious people don't fear change. They study it, they observe patterns, they explore new ideas without immediately judging them. Curiosity opens doors that rigid thinking keeps closed. It allows you to evolve without losing your sense of self. Reading more is one of the simplest ways to accelerate learning. Reading exposes you to perspectives you may never encounter in your immediate environment. It compresses decades of experience into hours of insight. But reading alone is not enough. The goal is not consumption, but integration. Fast learners reflect on what they read. They connect ideas, they apply lessons in real life. Learning sticks when it's used. Listening better is just as important. Many people listen to reply, not to understand. Fast learners listen to learn. They pay attention to what's being said and what's being avoided. They notice patterns and feedback even when it's uncomfortable. Listening expands awareness. It reveals blind spots. It turns every conversation into an opportunity for growth. Adaptability is not about abandoning principles. It's about adjusting methods. Fast learners hold their values steady while changing their strategies. They understand that flexibility in approach does not mean inconsistency in character. This balance allows them to navigate change without losing direction. The ability to learn fast also changes how failure is experienced. Instead of seeing mistakes as proof of inadequacy, fast learners see them as data. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every misstep becomes information. This mindset reduces fear and increases experimentation. When failure is reframed as feedback, progress accelerates. By 2026, the most valuable people will not be the ones who know everything. In fact, claiming to know everything will be a liability. The most valuable people will be those who can quickly understand new systems, absorb new information, and apply it effectively. They will be able to unlearn outdated habits and relearn better ones without clinging to the past. Fast learners are proactive. They don't wait for change to force adaptation. They anticipate it. They stay aware of trends, technologies, and shifts in thinking. They invest in learning before it becomes urgent. This foresight creates stability in unstable environments. Learning fast also requires focus. In a world overloaded with information, discernment matters. Not everything is worth learning. Fast learners know how to filter noise from signal. They seek depth over distraction. They choose quality sources. They build learning routines that support consistency rather than overwhelm. Staying curious keeps the mind flexible. It prevents stagnation. It keeps you open to growth at every stage of life. Curiosity is what allows learning to remain joyful rather than burdensome. When learning feels like exploration instead of obligation, progress becomes sustainable. As the pace of change increases, those who resist learning will feel increasingly overwhelmed. Those who embrace it will feel empowered. Learning fast creates confidence, not because you know everything, but because you trust your ability to figure things out. That trust reduces anxiety about the future. It creates a sense of readiness rather than fear. The skill of learning fast is not about speed alone. It's about responsiveness. It's about staying engaged with the world rather than hiding from its complexity. It's about evolving intentionally instead of reacting desperately. Those who cultivate this skill will not just survive change, they will shape it. Finally, this is where it all comes together. After clarity, after self-trust, after discipline, long-term thinking, emotional control, meaningful relationships, and the ability to learn fast, everything points to one central truth: without purpose, none of it truly lasts. A life without purpose may look successful on the outside. It may be full of achievements, recognition, and activity. But inside it feels hollow. There's a quiet emptiness that success alone cannot fill. You can be busy and still feel lost. You can be accomplished and still feel unfulfilled. Purpose is what bridges that gap. Purpose gives meaning to struggle. Without it, struggle feels unfair and exhausting. With it, struggle feels intentional. When you know why you are doing what you are doing, pain becomes part of the process instead of proof that something is wrong. Purpose reframes hardship. It turns obstacles into lessons and challenges into preparation. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this shaping me for?